Hi everyone, so I am going to walk you through how to run the CourseDog Room Optimizer and review results through the UI. So this is a really exciting time in your scheduling cycle because it means that you are finished with configuration, meeting times have been assigned, instructors have been assigned, and you are ready to move forward with assigning rooms. So before you go ahead and give the green light to running the Room Optimizer in CourseDog, you're going to want to give a couple of different configuration items a quick sanity check to ensure that all inputs are ready to be taken into account when making room assignments. So the first one is going to be rooms. It's important to just dive in and ensure that all of the room capacities, their types, their different features, the building, status, start and end date, the allowed sections filters, and whether or not they should be included in the optimizer is set up as expected. Additionally, standard meeting patterns should have been defined and already assigned to sections. Because we are not going to be running the time optimizer today, I'm going to skip over reviewing those in the interface. Additionally, you'll want to make sure that instructors have been assigned to sections and that if you are going to be collecting faculty preferences, that these have been captured as well, and you can review these and audit them by going into the instructor preferences and their profile. You'll also want to make sure that sections have all of their data filled out. We're going to be running the optimizer for the biology department today, so just go in and open up these sections or download the course sections list CSV to give them a quick sanity check. So some of the important inputs for the optimizer are going to be the term start and end dates, which are derived from the part of term or the meeting pattern start and end dates, enrollment capacity, meeting pattern, and then any other section-specific preferences in addition to the instructor assignment as well. So once you feel confident that all of those have been set up correctly, you can go ahead and navigate to the optimizer in the left-hand sidebar. You're going to want to click Section Optimizer. It should default to your scheduling term, but I would give this a quick review as well. And you're going to click Add Optimizer Run. So just to give you a quick overview of what we're looking at here, the optimizer is split into 4 different sections. We have general settings, where you're able to toggle between general and advanced settings. General settings are much more commonly used, while advanced settings are less commonly adjusted and relate to more nuanced preferences and constraints, although we'll go into details about both. The next area is going to be section conflicts. These display all section level conflicts that might impact optimizer performance, and then room bottlenecks as well, which also could impact optimizer performance. When all of these are reviewed and set up, you can go ahead and move on to optimize, which is the final step. You'll see that under this task list, you also have these to-dos, which will guide you to ensure that you know what you have to fill out on each page, and you can review this before progressing to the next section. So let's dive into general settings. You're going to want to give your optimizer run a descriptive name. Something we'll talk about a bit later is that it's very common to run multiple optimizer runs for a specific group of sections, and it's actually advised. So we'll want to include something like biology department run number 1. It'll default to all academic departments, but we are going to be only running it for the biology department today, which can be updated via this dropdown. And then you'll also indicate whether or not you want to receive an email notification that will let you know when the optimizer is done running. We'll leave that to yes. We're going to be assigning rooms, so we'll leave this to yes as well. And then minimum seat utilization essentially dictates what is the maximum size room the optimizer can assign to a specific section. So for example, it's defaulted to 50% right now. This will say that a room or a section with an enrollment capacity of 20 can be assigned to a room with a capacity of 40. However, if the section's enrollment capacity was 19, the optimizer would not assign it a room with a capacity of 40, as it is larger than this minimum seat utilization, and that is a hard constraint. So we'll leave it to 50% as now, but this is going to vary by institution. The next section are back-to-back preferences. This feature essentially mimics the back-to-back preferences that are available at individual instructor profiles. Instead of needing to go into each instructor profile and indicating that they have a back-to-back preference, you can configure this area of the optimizer to recognize what sections should be set as back-to-back. This typically will help instructors ensure that they are teaching sections in the same room if they are being taught back to back. So let's say this is yes. The back-to-back duration typically tends to be the passing period between classes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is for your institution. And this essentially tells the optimizer how it should recognize these back-to-back preferences based on their distribution and the faculty assignment as well. If you set this to yes or neutral, you'll likely want to set this to yes. And then here it's going to be the maximum number of sections that could be scheduled back-to-back. We'll say 3. The last section in setting related to back-to-back preferences is the enrollment difference. So it's essentially asking if there is a section with an enrollment capacity of 20, and then the same instructor is teaching another class 20 minutes later, and it has an enrollment capacity of 50, would you be able to recognize that as a back-to-back section? So we'll say 50% here. We aren't going to be running the time optimizer today, so we'll leave this as defaulted to no. And then these filters will tell the optimizer what classes and sections should actually be pulled into the optimizer and what sections it should assign rooms to. We're going to do all classes in the biology department, but just for illustrative purposes, we can go ahead and say where section status is not canceled. I'm going to clear this filter, but you can go ahead and play around with these, and it's very much contingent on what sections you actually are wanting to optimize. So now that we have defined general settings, we can go ahead and move into advanced settings. These are very much nuanced, especially compared to general settings as we discussed, but we'll go ahead and walk through all of them. Most often institutions do not touch these unless they specifically want to escalate certain priorities that they take into account when room scheduling, which we can get into. So here, the optimizer is asking, should it prioritize sections that use standard meeting patterns? Most institutions assign standard meeting patterns to all classes, but if you do use any custom meeting patterns, changing this to yes will tell the optimizer to weight the preferences of sections that use standard meeting patterns heavier than those using custom meeting patterns. This will additionally tell it whether or not it should weight classes that have certain section lengths over others. Same for meeting days, and then also enrollment preferences. A lot of these different weights have to do with section times and whether or not the optimizer is going to be assigning meeting patterns. Because we're only assigning rooms with this optimizer run, most of these can be ignored. But the way this functions is it tells the optimizer on a scale of 0 to 10 how much it should weight these different settings. So 0 essentially tells the optimizer to completely ignore it. A setting of 10 tells the optimizer this is a hard constraint. We advise not setting any of these to 10 because if the optimizer cannot meet this certain setting for one reason or another, if it is set to 10, it will likely fail, or a lot of sections will not have their rooms assigned successfully. So these are essentially telling the optimizer whether or not it should weight preferred times, conflict time submitted by faculty, preferred meeting length, whether or not instructors submit back-to-back preferences or these are configured within their instructor profile, time intervals between sections, and then here we have different preferences related to rooms, a lot of which can either be assigned at the section level or at the instructor's level as well. So here we have preferred room preferences. In the actual configuration of this optimizer run, I went in and assigned a lot of different room preferences to faculty. So if we do collect faculty preferences and ask them, what room do you prefer? You'll likely want to set this higher. Let's set it to 8. Similarly, if you captured preferred room type, you can weight this heavier, preferred building, or any preferred room features as well. We also have a setting for preferred room capacity, whether or not it is important to schedule sections in department-owned rooms. If you do have rooms that are owned by specific departments, you likely will want to weight this heavier. And then lastly, section relationships. So this is important to ensure these have been configured correctly at the section level or through the relationships setting window in the left-hand dashboard. And this will tell the optimizer to recognize certain linked section relationships. So let's say same time, same day, same room. If you have any of those types of relationships, you'll probably want to set this heavier as well, so the optimizer knows to prioritize this. So once you're comfortable with the settings, you can go ahead and progress to section conflicts. So there are a couple of different section conflict types. One of these is going to be sections with no maximum enrollment capacity. And you can see these here. One thing I'll flag is that we have only pulled bio classes into this specific optimizer run, but it is going to look for section conflicts and room bottlenecks that exist in the entire system, which can be in different departments as well, because it's looking to see any type of room assignments or meeting pattern assignments also that could potentially impact how well meeting patterns and rooms can be assigned to any classes in this specific term. So you can actually go in and click into this section and edit it directly within the optimizer. We'll want to ensure that this is set correctly. Say there are 16 seats in this class. We'll save this section. And then if you have the permissions as well, you can go ahead and change this for the math class also. You'll notice that it isn't automatically updated. You'll probably have to refresh the page. So once you refresh the page, you'll see that there is nothing to do here because all of the section conflicts have been resolved. Before we move on to room bottlenecks, I do want to touch quickly on a couple of different section conflicts that you may run into here. One is sections with double booked rooms. The optimizer treats double booking rooms as a hard constraint, as it will never double book a room. So if there are any sections provided to the optimizer that have a pre-existing room double booking, the optimizer will not be able to successfully make any room assignments and will fail. So in order to resolve this, what you'll need to do is either change the room assignment, or if these sections should truly have the same room assignment, then assign them a same room relationship, which will tell the optimizer that the double bookings are allowed and that they are okay, and then it can ignore them. A similar conflict are sections with double booked instructors. So this will only apply when running the time optimizer, so it isn't something that you necessarily need to look out for when running the room optimizer. But just to provide a little bit of extra detail, the time optimizer will not assign meeting times to a section that results in a double booked instructor, and this is also a hard constraint. So what you'll need to do if you do run into this is to assign the same time, same day relationship to these classes in order to tell the optimizer to ignore these instances. So once you're comfortable with all of the section conflicts being resolved, you can go ahead and move on to room bottlenecks. A couple of different room bottlenecks that you might see are if there is a room, no room with the required capacity. So essentially a section has an enrollment capacity, such as this instance, that is higher than any room capacity in the system. What you'll want to do is click into this section. Maybe it was an error, or it shouldn't have been entered as 50. We can go ahead and update that to 15, and it should be resolved once we refresh the page here as well. So the other thing that you could run into is that there might not be enough rooms with the required capacity at a certain time. So these two classes have a combined max enrollment of 44 because they have the same time, same day, same room relationship. So what you'll want to do is just go in, make sure that this is corrected for to ensure that there are enough rooms in the system to actually assign a room to these sections. So let's go ahead and refresh the page again. We see that all of the room bottlenecks have been resolved, and we now are ready to progress to the final stage, which is to run the optimizer. So here you're going to select click to optimize. You'll see that a time estimate is given at the bottom here, and that you'll see that it is optimizing by this wheel on the right. You don't need to stay in this window. You can go back into the system. You can do other things. You can log out of CourseDog. And if you did select yes to receiving an email notification when the optimizer run is completed, you should receive that email. So I'm going to pause the recording here, and we'll pick back up when we are ready to review the optimizer results. So we are back in business. The optimizer run has completed, and I will note that it only took around 5 minutes from start to finish to complete. It may indicate that it'll take over 100 minutes, however, this can vary based on the optimizer run inputs. Before we dive into actually viewing the results, I want to note that none of these results have actually been committed to the schedule yet. The optimizer will essentially create a copy of the schedule and will not merge any room and/or time assignments within the actual schedule in the section editor until you have a chance to review and indicate whether or not you want the entire run to merge or only specific assignments. The reason being is because we definitely encourage institutions to run the optimizer multiple times, trying various settings and weights with regards to the general and advanced settings so that they can figure out what settings are the best fit for their institution and the way that they have specifically configured their CourseDog environment. So to review the results of the optimizer run, you're simply going to click into the run. This will provide a high-level overview, and the dashboard includes a number of different views of the seat utilization by hour, schedule hourly daily distribution, and schedule daily distribution as well. The tab that's going to provide the most meaning is the results tab. This legend indicates whether sections were scheduled successfully, not scheduled, scheduled with issues, which most often are preference violations, or excluded. If you select into a specific section, you'll see whether or not it was scheduled successfully here, and if so, you can look at the room assignment that was made. If you open up the actual section editor, what you'll be able to see is that it provides all of the information visible in the section editor, but you cannot actually edit any of this data in the optimizer run. If you do want to merge a optimizer run, but you want to make specific changes, it is recommended that you merge the run results and then navigate to the section editor and make those desired changes. There are additionally filtering options and the ability to change the view similar to the section editor as well. You're able to view the conflicts tab, which will provide an overview of all of the conflicts in the run. You'll also be able to filter by conflict type. This also will provide an overview of whether or not these conflicts are preference conflicts as well, or if additional ones exist in the system. What you can see down here is additional information about the actual conflict and the sections and the faculty member in this case, which have been impacted. Export is a really neat feature because it will enable you to download the course sections list, which is identical to the course sections list CSV report available under the general reporting tab. However, this will pull as if the schedule that has been assigned by the optimizer has actually been merged in the section editor. So it essentially is asking, if you were to merge this run, what would the schedule look like? So it applies the view of all of the different sections that are in the system, and you're able to see the results of the optimizer run as well. You can additionally download the room bottleneck list, or if you wanted to look granularly specifically at the optimizer assignments, you could do that here as well. If you wanted an overview of the bottlenecks in the system, you can see them here. As you recall, we ensured that all of these were resolved prior to running the optimizer, which is why none are visible. And then lastly, you can view the input settings. This is absolutely important to review because you definitely want to track how you are configuring your optimizer run so that when you do a second iteration of the run, you're able to make granular changes either to general settings or more commonly advanced settings with regards to weighting, so you can track over time how you're making adjustments and what works best for you and your institution. Quickly going back into results, just to dive into what a merge actually looks like, if you wanted to only merge a couple of assignments that have been made, what you'll do is click Merge Section. This will only merge the room assignment for Introduction to Quantitative Modeling in Biology. If you wanted to merge all of the results from the optimizer, you would click this button in the upper right. Okay, that is it. That is an overview of the room optimization in CourseDog and reviewing results in the system. Thank you.